3 students. 1 conversation where film theory collides with the reality of filmmaking. Life after film school. Today's guest, Oscar winner Diablo Cody, screenwriter of the 20th Century Fox release, Jennifer's Body.
Jennifer's evil.
I know.
No, I mean, she's actually evil, not high school evil.
You're killing people.
No, I'm killing boys.
Are you scared?
Thought you only murdered boys.
I go both ways.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We start off every show with the same first question. Please finish the following sentence. The most important thing someone should know before graduating film school is?
Don't listen to people. I know this sounds like really strange, hypocritical advice, seeing as you're asking me questions right now, but I found that a lot of the advice that I got from well-meaning people in my life was actually more of a hindrance than a help, because you're constantly having people trying to ground you or tell you to have realistic expectations or focus on stability, that kind of thing. At least that's the kind of stuff I heard when I was about to graduate from college, and it was honestly, it was defeatist. It really was. I wish somebody had said to me, you know what, you're capable of doing whatever you want to do. I know that sounds like really Seussian and lame, but like it's the truth.
Well, speaking of graduating from college, you graduated from the University of Iowa.
Yeah.
With a degree in media studies.
Yeah, a now defunct major at University of Iowa.
No longer exists.
I think I killed it.
Well, from there, you went on to have a job as a copy typist.
Yes.
Okay. People often have random jobs right out of college, but was working in a big corporation something that you had set your sights on?
I knew I wanted to be a writer, and I I'd been told so many times that I needed to go into a stable field. So I thought, how about advertising? I could write commercials. What a delight! So I applied for jobs at ad agencies, and I got this entry-level job typing things that other people had written, because it's so difficult to type your own copy. It's strange. I think it was very Mad Men. I think that job is probably obsolete now.
So your first internet work was a blog, a parody blog you called The Red Secretary, which chronicled the fictional exploits of a Belarusian secretary. Was this in any way based on your real life?
It was just something I created because I was bored. I felt frustrated creatively, so and the internet was this magical new world.
Right.
It's funny, there are a lot of fictional blogs out there now, but at the time I thought that was such a weird idea. And it was, in many ways, kind of a fictionalized version of my life.
But eventually you started working at a gentleman's club.
A gentleman's club.
Gentleman's.
That's funny.
So what was the primary reason for that? Were you trying to break the doldrums or possibly looking for source material?
I think I was not looking for source material. I think it occurred to me at the time that I was never going to fit into the corporate sphere, ever. I was constantly late. I was losing things. I was always being disciplined. It didn't fit, and there was really nothing left for me to do. And I had to support myself, and I thought, what should an exceptionally lazy person who likes to keep late hours do with their life? It was a no-brainer.
So at what point did you start the Pussy Ranch blog, and why exactly?
I started the Pussy Ranch actually before I started dancing, which is funny because, I think, I don't know if I was, I don't know how to explain it. It's just my life was kind of taking a dark turn, I guess. And I started out just writing about my life, and then I started writing about dancing, stripping, whatever you want to call it. And anyway, the story's been rehashed a million times, so.
But this dark turn led to an important call in your life when Mason Novick gave you a call. And said that he was interested in turning your blog into a memoir,
yeah.
Which eventually became, I believe, Candy Girl,
yeah.
A Year in the Life of an Unlikely Stripper.
I like that you even included the subtitle.
It's important.
You're like a one-man Library of Congress.
It gives context.
Yeah.
And can you tell us about your first meeting with Mason and what it was about your writing that attracted him to you?
I have no idea. I really got lucky. I don't know that many people who are randomly contacted by Hollywood producers who want to work with them. That doesn't happen. That's why I often don't feel qualified to talk about my career trajectory, because it's not typical. Yeah, he had read my blog. I don't know how. Gave me a call and said, I'm always looking for writers. At that time, he was always kind of scavenging for talent. And he said that he thought maybe I could write a screenplay. And that just seemed foreign to me. You know, I've always loved movies, but it never occurred to me that, I don't even think I thought about the people who made them. So it seemed like a crazy idea.
So Mason encouraged you to write a screenplay, and in a few months you turned out Juno. Where did you get the inspiration for the story?
You know, I was coming at it from kind of a naive perspective where I thought, well, I don't want to write something that sounds like another movie. So I started like making lists of things I hadn't seen in films before. And I thought, oh, you know, I had read about somebody who had this open adoption where she met her child's birth mother during the pregnancy. And I thought, that's kind of a new dynamic. Like I hadn't, that's kind of, it's kind of zeitgeisty, it's kind of interesting. I should write a movie about that.
Should we sit down and get to know one another?
Oh, I thought I'd get some drinks. What would anyone like? I have Pellegrino or vitamin water or orange juice with
I'll
folic
have a
acid.
Maker's Mark, please.
She's kidding. Junebug has a wonderful sense of humor, just one of her many genetic gifts.
I wanted to see this teenage girl sitting down with these yuppie parents, and they're kind of auditioning for her. And to me, that was such a strange interaction. I wanted to see that scene, and the whole movie came out of that. So I start with moments.
How did you turn it out so quickly?
Because writing is not hard. This is what people do not understand. You can't overthink things. I mean, you know, I work in television now, and we'll write an episode in a day. If you're constantly sitting down just obsessing over every word and just nursing the hell out of it, you're gonna kill it. You have to keep that life force there. You have to keep the ball rolling.
I might pumice my feet, might go to Bransdom Unitarian Church, maybe get hit by a truck full of hot garbage juice, you know, because all those things would be exponentially cooler than going to prom with you.
A lot of the success of the film, you could say, was based on the dialogue, the really kind of witty, acerbic sort of dialogue.
I didn't plan on that.
Didn't plan on it at all?
No, I think I probably would have toned it down a lot if I had thought it would, you know, become. I mean, I'm pleased that people responded to it, but it wasn't like I made a conscious decision to write this really strange movie.
So we all stare into the mirror and practice our Oscar acceptance speech. You got to live that moment. So
yeah, but when it happens, you're not conscious, so you don't get to enjoy it. I can't remember anything about it at all. It's really a shock to my system. I don't remember much about that time. It was just very shocking and overwhelming.
So after you had time to absorb, like, what did it mean to you?
Yeah, it took me like a year to process it.
Really?
Like for a while, I just put it away because I didn't even want to look at it. I don't know anybody who's been through that experience who hasn't kind of gone through like a little low period afterwards. It's really strange. I think now I feel like if there's something that has to define me in my life, I'm so glad that that's it. You know, it's a lot better than, you know, killed 14 people, you know. Oscar winner Diablo Cody, I can deal with that. Like, that makes me happy, and it always makes me happy to hear it. But it'll never stop feeling weird, and it's surreal, and it's I think of Oscars as being like a reward for a body of work, and talented people have them. And I'm just like buffoon. Like I don't know what that thing is doing in my house, and it makes me chuckle.
This isn't really your house, is it?
No, baby. This is our house. Just for you and me. We can play mommy and daddy.
No way.
All right, so Jennifer's Body is the story of a popular high school cheerleader who basically becomes possessed by demons and ends up feeding on or off of the boys in her high school. What was the inspiration for that?
Basically, after I wrote Juno, I knew I wanted to write a horror movie. Horror has been my favorite genre my entire life. And I realized, like, no, I actually have the opportunity to do this. Like, I could, you know, it's a dream come true for me. So I thought to myself, all right, I want to write something that genuinely scares me. What do I find scary? I thought, zombies, yeah, kind of. Ghosts, I guess. But teenage girls, scary. I think the most intimidated I ever was in my life was when I was being bullied by a girl in high school. So I thought, all right, that's it. I'm going to write a horror movie about girls. And the cannibalism, you know, it's so ripe. You know, the metaphor.
Right.
The emotional chaos of being an adolescent, sexuality, the transformation of puberty is kind of paranormal in a weird way. It just all made sense to me.
So first Juno and now Jennifer's Body revolve around high schoolers in small Midwestern towns. You grew up in a small suburb of Chicago.
Yeah.
So how much of your screenplays are based on your own childhood experiences?
My childhood informs everything I write, especially my adolescence. You know, I have this obsession with teenagers. The reason I'm drawn to stories about teens is because I feel like adolescence is a time when everything is felt so strongly. And if there's anything you want to do with a film, it's to make people feel. So teenagers are, to me, their stories are especially profound and especially intense.
You said that you found inspiration in director Sam Raimi's work,
yeah,
along with some of the other 80s genres films like The Lost Boys,
yeah,
which seem to strike that balance between horror and comedy.
I miss those movies. I miss, you know, you'd be a kid and like one family on the block would have cable, and you would sit down and you would watch Lost Boys, and you would watch Fright Night, and you would watch Ghoulies, and these horror movies that had this element of mayhem and humor, and
which aren't really around a lot anymore.
Not really, and they were for young people. And you would watch them over and over again, and I wanted to recapture that feeling. Jennifer's Body, you know, we made a conscious decision to give it kind of a vintage look. It has kind of a 70s, 80s aesthetic. It's very, very colorful, and it feels to me like an 80s movie, which is what I wanted.
Okay, so you remember the night of the fire? I got really messed up. They killed you. I'm still here, aren't I? I mean, they did go all Benihana on my ass with that knife, and it should have killed me, but for some reason, it didn't.
It seems like in a lot of these classic horror films that the last man standing is oftentimes a woman. How did this speak to you?
I have to wonder if maybe that's why I always enjoyed horror films so much, because I felt like, in a weird way, they were speaking to me as a female. You know, you do see a lot of female protagonists in horror films, and so obviously that wasn't lost on me. Although in this case, we also have a female villain, which it's nice to have a girl be the monster.
And then what was the process like from taking it from that concept into a movie in development?
The script was developed a lot. It was changed a lot. Even the final cut feels different than what we started with, because it was really hard to strike the right tone. It's hard to do a horror movie that's also funny and also emotional and creepy. We took on a lot. I'm really happy with the finished film, but it was a challenge.
So we've read that you originally set out to create a dark, brooding, traditional slasher movie, but that a third of the way through, your macabre sense of humor was creeping in.
Every single time I sit down and try to write something dramatic or intense, it inevitably turns into a farce. Like I can't resist poking fun at things that happen in life. I'm not saying all my jokes are funny, but I do tend to see the humor in some inappropriate situations.
And you said that comedy films and horror films are similar in terms of not being a passive experience for the audience.
They're so similar. You know, when you go to see a comedy, everyone in the audience is laughing. You hope. When you go to see a horror film, people are covering their eyes, they're gasping, there's that tension. People react to comedy and horror. I'm not saying there isn't value in sitting through a 3-hour costume drama and just kind of shifting in your seat occasionally, because sometimes that's good. But for me, I like to go to the movies and feel deeply affected.
You've talked about mixing eye-popping moments with emotionality. How do you go about doing that?
It's not difficult to shock and titillate people with a scary movie. Honestly, it's not that challenging. Get a good sound designer. You did it, you're scary. Right. For me, it was really important that there was also like emotional truth in the movie. That the story of Needy and Jennifer's friendship was told. That we could sense that they had this connection since childhood that had turned toxic as they got older. So it was kind of digging under that layer of, you know, easy scariness and getting to the heart of things. That was the challenge.
There was a lot of like really graphic gore in the film. Is that something that you wrote into the script or just evolved on set? Or
no, the script was a lot more graphic than the finished film. Really? Oh, yeah. At one point, I made a reference to someone's intestines being strewn around like party streamers. And they were like, yeah, we're not doing that. Like, what are you doing? Karen comes from more of a De Palma, Polanski school of influence. And so she said, no, I want this to be more atmospheric than gory. We can have some gore. But honestly, like I had envisioned it as like a Herschel Gordon Lewis bloodbath. But I'm glad she went for something a little more stylish. I need to be pulled back. That's why I don't direct.
So director Karen Kusama, can you talk a little bit about how she won you over, and was it important that a female director direct Jennifer's Body?
I sat down with Karen, and honestly, I just thought it was going to be like an informal meeting. And she had brought this book, this scrapbook that she had made of visual inspiration that she had gleaned from the script. And the minute she opened it, I think I grabbed her and I said, "You have to do this movie," because I realized we had the exact same sort of references. We had a similar vision, and I thought, you know, it was a great stroke of luck that she also happened to be female, because you don't often see two women making a commercial horror film.
Sounds like you guys were on the same page for a lot of things. Was there anything that Karen interpreted about your script that was completely different than how you originally envisioned it?
Yeah, you know, I think Karen was able to really find the vulnerability in Jennifer. Jennifer was, when you see the movie, you'll see she's just incredibly outspoken, bitchy, shall we say. And Karen was like, I understand that this girl is you know, gorgeous and bitchy and commanding, but there's also, there's something missing. You know, she's also lonely. She's also insecure. And there's this shot in the movie that Karen created of Jennifer just sort of slapping makeup onto her face and gazing in the mirror, and there's such sadness in her eyes. And you see through the facade for really the first time, and it made it as a woman, it was so profound to me, and I've never thought of Jennifer the same way.
I am not insecure, needy. God, that's a joke. How could I ever be insecure? I was the snowflake queen.
Yeah. 2 years ago, when you were socially relevant, I am going to eat your soul.
So Jennifer in Jennifer's Body is Megan Fox, who's clearly the it girl of the moment. How lucky do you feel to have her as the lead in your film?
You know, I knew the instant that we met her that she was going to be a huge star, and she just has this incredible charisma. I'm very intimidated by her. Most people are. She's incredibly cool, but she really has this like old Hollywood mystique that you do not see in a lot of actors these days. I can't picture anyone else playing Jennifer. She's the whole point of Jennifer is she's supposed to be just incredibly magnetic, and you would do anything that she asked you to do, even if it seems dangerous or nonsensical. And I think Megan has that same quality.
Yeah. And you had a cameo, right? So
yeah, but non-speaking, thank God.
Well, whose idea was it?
It was mine, and I was a fool because I was just kind of excited, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I was the bartender? You know, in this bar scene, and I don't have to say anything, but I'll just be in the background, and I'll be like Alfred Hitchcock, like just in the background of my movie. And then I realized that translates to like standing around in an apron for 12 hours and doing nothing. So boring. Acting sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've said before that you're inspired by awkward situations and forced politeness.
Yes.
What is it about these things that inspires you?
I think most people are sort of acting 24/7. We've created this polite society where everybody says things, but it's not what they actually mean. You know, most people have a very strict internal censor, and the way people communicate with each other in an attempt to be polite, for some reason, is so funny to me. You know, the fact that we could be having this conversation, and then you could go outside and like talk crap about me. Well, you're not going to do that, are you?
No,
you
I'm
might.
not.
You never know.
I won't.
It's just that I don't know. It's just polite society is funny to me.
A lot of writers talk about, you know, the routine is writing in a specific place at a certain time. Do you have anything like that? What's your writing routine?
It really depends on what I'm working at the time. When working on TV, you have to have a routine. There's a writer's room. You show up every day. You work together. You keep specific hours. When I'm writing a feature, anything goes. I'm really not very disciplined, as you can probably guess. I always say if I wanted to wake up and work every day, I would have never gone into this business. When I feel it, I write. When I'm not feeling it, I'll read, I'll do research, I'll think of some other way to sort of enrich the project. But I don't sit down and stare at a computer. When you're on a deadline, that's a different story, such as right now. I'm super late on something, and I'm going to have to go home and sit and stare at the computer. But yeah, it happens.
In film school, we take a lot of classes that help make the screenwriting process easier, like writing outlines or drafting log lines or putting note cards on cork boards. How do you keep your stories, once you have these scenes struck, how do you keep them structured? How do you make sure everything fits together?
You know, I keep it really simple. I usually just open up Word or any kind of word processing document and make a bullet-pointed list of things I want to happen. And then you can kind of reorder them, like, well, this should happen before this, and this maybe. I'm pretty disorganized with screenwriting. When I write for TV, then that's when the corkboard action happens, because it's like a chess game, and you have to keep everything consistent from episode to episode, so you can't be as loose.
So there's a lot of back and forth in the development process between you and the studio and the execs. What exactly is that process like with the fine-tuning, and how do you hone a script?
Nobody enjoys the development process. There aren't any writers who will say, oh, I absolutely love getting notes. It's so helpful. Sometimes I say that. I'll be like, oh, your notes really helped. And like what I mean is like, shut up. But sorry, Suits.
Do you take the notes? Do you like use them?
No, you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah. I always say that the network or the studio is kind of like the landlord. Like, technically it's your place, but they could kick you out.
Yeah. Right.
So you need to get permission before you paint the walls. Honestly, I know you always hear stories about this cool director who's a total renegade and a rogue and doesn't listen to the studio, and that doesn't usually work. There's a couple people that can pull that off, but honestly, it's usually in your best interest to cooperate, because some of what you wanted is better than none, and some can quickly turn into none if you're an ass.
You went from pretty much being unknown to superstardom practically overnight. Superstardom.
Superstardom.
What was that transition like?
It's rough. It was a rough transition, and it was also actors, for instance. An aspiring actor has dreamed their entire life of getting that kind of attention. That's how actors are wired. They want to perform, they want to entertain, they want to be seen. Writers, not so much. Writers are a little more introverted, and I prefer to be an anonymous person. I would like to be able to show up at a premiere and just walk in and not do the red carpet. To me, it feels silly as a writer to be on the red carpet, but now I have to do those things. Like, I'm part of marketing this film now. So here I am. Here I am on television. Yay. Yeah, I mean, I'm happiest. I want to be, it's a cliche, but like, I want to be in my pajamas. I want to be alone. I want to write. I liked it when people thought Diablo Cody was a guy. That was a fun time in my life.
So can you tell us about the Fempire? Like, who's in it and why do you feel it's so important?
Fempire is a tongue-in-cheek term, first of all.
Okay, you didn't coin that? You didn't?
Well, my friends and I made it up, but we're not so, we're not that stuck on ourselves that we think we're an actual empire.
Right.
But the quote-unquote Fempire is me, Dana Fox, Lorene Scafaria, and Liz Merriweather. And we've all been lucky to enjoy some measure of success. And I thought, you know what, this is pretty unusual to have 4 successful female screenwriters hanging out, supporting each other. This is something I would like to share. Me and my friends, a lot of people assume that we would be competitive because we get offered a lot of the same projects because we're girls. Romantic comedy. All 4 of us will get offered it. We'll pass it around. And it's instead of becoming competitive and going, oh my God, it's so hard being a woman, there's so few slots for us, we help each other. I say it's like lobsters in a pot. That's what I always say. Like, lobsters should help each other crawl out of the boiling water. If we all just lay here, we're going to die. So, network. Find other women and befriend them.
And you've mentioned the difficulty in studios accepting a strong, subversive female lead in their films.
Oh, yeah. They want a female lead character to be sympathetic, kind of neurotic, trip and fall a lot, worried about getting a man, into shoes. Yeah, I mean, if you present this female character who's like an iconoclast or a sociopath or any one of these interesting things that men always get to be in movies, they get nervous. But I'm trying to change that. I'm trying. I always say, like, we need the female Holden Caulfield.
Would you think that the mega success of Juno has maybe possibly changed that a little? Or?
I hope so. If that's true, then my work is done here, because that's all I want.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
We have one final question.
Okay.
And we're students. We're still learning. So can you tell us the biggest lesson you've learned in your career that we can learn today?
The biggest lesson I have learned, do not listen to well-meaning people who think they can tell you what you can or cannot do. Everybody loves to be so doom and gloom about, oh, Los Angeles, broken dreams, you're gonna wait tables and blah. Shut up. Like, so what if you do? You can shoot stuff on 16 behind your apartment, whatever. You value the originality of your ideas instead of saying, oh, I liked this movie, I'm gonna make a movie like this. Or I really admire this person, I wanna have a career like theirs. Even though it seems challenging, you have to carve out your own niche, you have to do your own thing. To hell with everyone else. Keep writing no matter what. Like, if you genuinely love it, you'll do it regardless of whether or not you're successful. And, you know, I guess, and persistence is important.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been a blast. Thanks, guys.